Just a bit of background about the project. It's about male femininity.
Okay.
Social constructs about men wearing makeup.
Okay, that's interesting.
So first question, how often, if ever, do you use makeup yourself?
Every day. Yeah, I don't leave the house without it. In fact, even if I'm staying at home all day, I still put it on. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on society's views on makeup?
I think there's a sort of a strange extremism that's started to happen with makeup recently, and there's been a big change, which has probably always been there slightly, where more people are wearing more extreme types of makeup, and a lot of it I think is to do with the selfie culture as well. So it's actually making your face ready to be photographed rather than to be a face that walks around, and yet the faces do walk around. So that's I think society's sort of gone a bit mad, I think, in terms of that. I mean, the way I put my makeup on is the way I've done it for years and years and years. It's a sort of, it's not to do with fashion, it's just basically it's my face. And so I think it's interesting how most people aren't becoming themselves anymore, they're becoming something other than themselves.
Yeah. How do you personally view men that wear makeup?
How do I view? I don't know really. I sometimes think it's surprising, but just in that sort of startling way sometimes, where it sort of out of context of a party or a, I don't know, drag scenario, or I mean, there's a guy in Sainsbury's on the High Street in Albany Road, and he has full makeup on, and he's done his eyebrows and he's done his beard in this particular way, and it's great, it's fine, I don't think anything of it particularly, but I just think it's interesting that that's become a sort of more normal thing to do. But I don't have a particular view of it. I don't laugh at it or hate it or think it's inappropriate. I just think it's interesting. Yeah.
Have you found that masculine women are more accepted in society than feminine men, or vice versa?
I just think possibly vice versa. I think women who are particularly masculine or seem to be more masculine are sometimes less accepted. It's difficult to sort of know for sure. I think it's odd working in an art school because we accept so many things, and for example, my appearance on the street can sometimes be alarming to people, whereas here it's nothing. It's just another tutor wearing their clothes or whatever. So I think it's quite difficult to be objective about that. But I think just trying to think of scenarios where women are more masculine or seem more masculine. I think, the thing is, like, people like Theresa May are more masculine, like Margaret Thatcher was more masculine, potentially Hillary Clinton was going to be, and Angela Merkel. There's a sort of pseudo kind of masculinity that comes with a sense of power that's nothing to do with appearance. It's to do with what your purpose is. And I think, go back to Elizabeth I and sort of think about how she constructed herself in order to become a powerful woman. That was about taking on some masculine traits that are not necessarily to do with appearance, but the appearance was part of the manifestation of that. So, that's kind of interesting. I don't know if I'm answering your question very well. Yeah. Okay.
Why do you think men that choose to wear makeup are typically looked down upon in society?
Are they? That's the first thing I'd say. If they are, it may be that possibly, apparently, men are supposed to spend less time worrying about their appearance. But, there's been a sort of the shift in that since, actually, there hasn't been a shift. There's been maybe the 20th century and the 21st century, there's been a bit of a shift because, men started to wear suits and dress in a particularly formal way. But then you get the 60s, the 70s. I mean, the 70s and the 80s particularly incredibly flamboyant, men dressing up in, very sort of feminine or over-the-top kind of clothes, a lot of makeup, interesting hairstyles. Now we have the kind of the beard thing, which is big, and the kind of sweeping back of hair. But if you don't have to go back very far in history to see that men were far more flamboyant in many ways than women were, and have been wearing makeup for centuries. It's just, I think, the sort of First World War, Second World War, that was a time when men were wearing practical clothing and practical hairstyles, and although fairly dapper some of the time, that was not about a sense of flamboyancy. So I think it's not that necessarily men are looked down upon. I think we've become more narrow-minded as a society, actually, strangely, particularly, with the internet and with all the things and all the information we have available to us. And I actually think it hasn't made us more open-minded. I think it's made us more bigoted and more narrow-minded. And I think, I actually think it's one of the reasons why we're in the peculiar situations we are today. And that's not to do with makeup and things like that, but it's to do with almost the fact that we're asking these questions, that actually is part of the problem, is that we make assumptions about things because we're almost finding out things as if they're brand new. So, sorry, my answers are very long. That's okay. Yeah.
What do you think we could do to help feminine men be a bit more accepted in society?
To help, I don't know. I think it's probably something to do with how anxious we all are about who we are. More so than ever before, possibly. Possibly in our society, in the British society, or even in the Welsh society, it's because we have very little else to be bothered about. So we bother about the things which don't really matter that much. So I think we need to take notice of the things that actually matter and stop bothering about the things which really don't matter, which is how someone dresses or what they're wearing. And the thing is, if we had other purposes and other things to do with our time and our minds and our meandering through our thoughts, we might not have those opinions so strongly. So I think, going back in the historical sense and looking at those things, people didn't have time to be either that feminine or that masculine, or money didn't allow it. I think, the plenty has actually meant that we've become a bit more foolish, and I think it's about not just reflecting on how men who may seem more feminine are portrayed or how they feel in society, but also how the rest of those constructs that we've created around ourselves impact on how we perceive our purpose, I think. Yeah. Is that okay? Is that all the questions? Okay, that's good.
Is it all right if I get a photo of you as well?
Yes, sure.